My pleasure to introduce our speaker this evening, Kevin from Camarillo.
I don't know what the hell's so funny about that. Goddamn pleasure to have me here, Chris. How dare you? It's just me and Wes, you know what I'm talking about? Wes up here with the 12 traditions. Great job, Wes. And welcome to all the newcomers, and welcome to Wes. I remember what it was like. It was funny, I was reflecting when the lady was doing chapter 5, I was like, she's doing such a great job. Still today, I get a little bit nervous having to read from the podium because my head just goes the whole time sometimes, you know what I mean? Like I misspeak slightly, and my head's just like, oh my gosh, you said that word wrong. And Wes, you know, he's like, yeah, I seem nervous. One thing, Wes, no one can tell. Just remember, they're thinking about themselves, you know what I mean? Like in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're thinking about us, you know? And the secretary told me, you know what, you can go past 9 o'clock. And I thought, you know what, no one gets sober after 9 o'clock. We just cut it off at 9. Because I don't even want to hear me after 9 o'clock. So it's great to be here. It's great to be sober. Welcome to everybody. Congratulations to the birthday people and the chip people and the newcomers. And, you know, Alcoholics Anonymous is an amazing place. It really is. And the lady who spoke last and talked about, you know, not wanting to bring your grief to AA, and there's no better place to bring it, in my opinion. Because what you're doing is, you know, when my dad died, I went to people whose father had died around Alcoholics Anonymous to help me process that. And when my daughter got sick and needed to have open heart surgery, I went to people who had kids who had been sick. And the thing that, you know, because I'm a really private person, I don't talk to a lot of people, I don't make friends easily, I'm very reserved. But the thing I realized in Alcoholics Anonymous is the things that are biggest issues and problems make us an example of, you know what I mean? Like in my early sobriety, I was one of the people who would get kicked out of meetings for talking. And I didn't show respect for Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I had a hard time coming to grips with even being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I came into these rooms and I looked around and I certainly didn't feel like I belonged here, and I didn't feel like, it's not because I was too young. I got sober when I was 18 years old. Oh my gosh, I'm so old now. I'm 56 years old. You know, I've been sober 38 years, and I didn't come into Alcoholics Anonymous even wanting to be sober, period. I'd never heard of Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm aware of. If the day before I came in here, I wouldn't have said I was an alcoholic. I knew I was having a lot of trouble. I was having legal trouble, and I was having emotional trouble, but I'd been having emotional trouble and legal trouble for, you know what I mean, for quite a while in my life. I had not made a connection between drugs and alcohol and the problems I was having. And I look back on that kid 38 years ago, and I just think to myself, you know, I could have missed it all. I really could have. I didn't understand that my life hung in the balance. And it wasn't until I was around here for a while and I saw my friends go out and die. And I've seen a progression of people come in and then go out and die. I mean, at this point, it's in the hundreds. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous saves lives, and it saved my life in spite of myself. And the life that I live today, it's interesting because I was reflecting. I had a great day today. I went and played golf and had a really fun time playing golf. And then I went home and I took a nap. And it's nice, you know. I still don't quite believe that I'm, however years I get. Am I 58? I'm 57, okay? So I'm so old, I don't even know how old I am. That's how old I am, you know what I mean? Like, and I stayed up late last night binge watching Boardwalk Empire. And, you know, I had to get up at 6 for golf, and I was up at 2:30 watching the show. And it's like I still do things excessively. I do. But I drove here with my wife, and we've been married for 33 years. All right. Yeah, 33 years. And I'm so grateful for the life that I have. And I was thinking about the gratitude that I have and the gratitude I have for my wife. You know what I mean? And gratitude is an action. You know what I mean? And I can be a complete asshole. I don't mean to be. Inside, I feel like I'm a great guy and easy to get along with. I really do. I feel like I live on the sunny side of the street and I bring nothing but love and tolerance into my life on a daily basis. And what I feel like is totally irrelevant. It's what I do. And when I act like an asshole, I'm not a great example of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am just an asshole, you know, and I'm extremely grateful for the life that my wife and I have. And I'm extremely grateful for the loving and caring person that she is, you know. My mom's 96 years old. She lives in an assisted living facility around the corner from our house. And sometimes she remembers who we are and sometimes she doesn't. My wife goes there diligently and I go there diligently. And it's like this selfless giving that I see in my life. And again, it's not always with grace. You know, it doesn't really matter how you feel about what you're doing. It matters what you do. And that's the message for the newcomer. You know, it's totally irrelevant how you feel about Alcoholics Anonymous. It matters what you do. And what do I do to show gratitude to Alcoholics Anonymous? I say yes when asked. Scott texted me, asked me if I wanted to speak, and I said yes. And I showed up here tonight, you know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is I never feel like going to speak. I never feel that. I'm Swiss. I'm a Swiss citizen. My mom was born in Switzerland, and Switzerland's playing in the World Cup right now. Sorry, Norway. I saw you guys out there. I feel your pain. You got beaten by the great colonizers. That's all I'm saying. We just got back from Ireland, and it's like I really hate the English now. I already had a disdain for them, but now I hate them. And I know Darren spoke last week, and I'm sure he turned you into English haters as well. But yeah, he's a really good friend of mine. And you know, the life that I have is because I show up and I'm willing to be inconvenienced. And showing up to this meeting and showing up to commitments and showing up to the meeting on Thursday and reading a fifth step with a guy that I sponsor and calling my sponsor and showing up to AA when I have plenty of better things to do, that has kept me in good stead. And that's where I feel like I'm extremely blessed that I realized at some point in my first 5 years of sobriety that Alcoholics Anonymous had to be a priority. It had to be. And since that time until today, I've kept it a priority. In spite of my beautiful big life, I still show up for Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's the danger of Alcoholics Anonymous. You build this wonderful life. You know what I mean? You get things that you never aspired to have and never thought you would have. And a life that I have a life today. I'm a 7th and 8th grade math teacher. And if you would have asked me when I was growing up if I was going to be a teacher, it was like, no way. There wasn't a single classroom I ever was in that I didn't get in excessive amounts of trouble. I was a very difficult kid in the classroom. I'm sure I have some sort of form of ADHD or just, I don't know, just a need for negative attention. You know, even today, I'm drawn to saying mean and negative things. It's like, it's my superpower. I'm so good at it, you know what I mean? It's like I have to relinquish that power in Alcoholics Anonymous. I just have to hold my tongue. I've come to realize that I'm not the arbiter of Alcoholics Anonymous. I used to feel like if anyone had any kind of misstep at all, I needed to be there to let them know where they're falling short. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't work the steps exactly how I work the steps? Oh, you're doing it wrong. You're killing people. Yeah, I mean, those words have come out of my mouth when I'm talking about people who sponsored other people. I started off in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought sponsorship was the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard of. Like you're asking someone, please be my friend. Please be my friend and tell me what to do. Yeah, it's like there's a guy who spoke on Saturday night. We were talking about Grace Lutheran earlier, and the secretary said, the only thing you have to do is just stand at the podium and talk. And so he went to the back of the room, and he talked from the back of the room. And that's me. I'm contrarian. You tell me to go left, I'm going to go right. You tell me I have to do something, I just naturally, innately don't want to do it. Even if I was going to do it. Like, don't tell me what to do. You know what I mean? Like the most basic direction, if I get it from my bosses today, my first inclination is no. Like, I don't want to do that. And what comes out of my mouth is yes. Like, they know, they say to me, hey, Kevin, are you willing to whatever? And I say yes. Hey, do us a favor. It's yes. When someone needs something in my life, it's yes, no matter how inconvenient it is. And it's not because I'm a great guy, though I am a great guy. I just have to let you know that. It's not because I'm a great guy. It's because I realize that my life depends on it. My relationship with God is fed with good actions. It has nothing to do with intentions. And that's the thing for me. And like I said, gratitude is an action. I'm super grateful for the life that I have and the family that I have. My daughter's here today. She's just like a wonder in my life. She's a member of Al-Anon. She goes to meetings on a regular basis. She works at the same school that I work at. She's a 6th grade math teacher. So the kids now get Miss P, right? And then they go on to Mr. P. And she's a softer touch with the same kind of structure and discipline that you get when you're raised in Alcoholics Anonymous by parents who are in recovery. And that's the blessing in my life. And I could have missed it all. There are people blocks away from here who are estranged from their family and never talk to them. And I don't ever want to forget, it's because of my activity in Alcoholics Anonymous and my willingness to work the steps on a regular basis that I establish the relationships that I have so that I walk out there as though I'm normal. I don't get into altercations in the store anymore. I felt slighted or threatened, and it was an immediate reaction in some way, shape, or form. It didn't matter if there was 5 guys or 1 guy. If I perceive that I'm being threatened or slighted, I feel fear. And when I feel fear, I lash out with my tools, the tools that I've had in this world. What are my tools? It's violence, willingness for violence. Even though I was afraid of every time I was in a fist fight and never enjoyed being in a fist fight, I get in a lot of fist fights. Why? Because I felt fear and I reacted to it. And how do you change those things? How do you not put your hands on your kids when you're raised by a really, really violent man? Having like traumatic experience after traumatic experiences, there was nothing on a regular basis in our house. How do you react to that? You have to establish a relationship with God. You have to be able to identify your character defects. And that was the hardest thing in Alcoholics Anonymous for me, is to realize my character defects are the things that worked for me. You wouldn't do those things if they didn't work for you. They destroy your life, but they work for you. I was so uncomfortable from the very beginning. I started school and I was uncomfortable from the very beginning. I was a smart kid and school came really easy to me. They wanted to move me up grades. They put me in a mixed classroom. But it didn't matter how smart I was. I just couldn't conform because I was just uncomfortable. I remember my mom and my dad were both first generation from Europe. So they were immigrants. And as a result, we were living in a neighborhood that was semi-affluent, and we were poor. They bought a house in like 1967, 68, track home. Turned out they bought it, they hit the jackpot in this great area in Redondo Beach, Torrance, called Hollywood Riviera. It's up on a hill. And all these rich people moved in, and we were kind of like the poor white trash of that area. We were like they had gardeners. Like, we gardeners, you know what I mean? Like, it was us out there, like, pulling weeds on a lawn that didn't exist. You know what I mean? It's not like my parents were cultivating our yard. You know, my mom grew roses, but she felt like she was still on a farm back in Switzerland. That's how we were raised. We had like a dirt backyard, and during the winter, we'd get rain, and then we'd have weeds, and they'd grow up to like this. It was just like, I'm sure a lot of you guys grew up the same way, just complete chaos. You know what I mean? And my dad, he would ground us for the entire summer because of our report cards. They'd all be bad. So he'd ground us, and we'd have to like pull weeds and do all these different chores around the house. And it never got nice. it just was like, it kept the roof from collapsing. That's basically how it was. It was dirt coming in through the backyard. We'd have birds coming into the house eating out of the dog bowl. You know, we had a German Shepherd and another small dog, and there was just hair all over the floor. And we didn't have a vacuum cleaner that worked, you know, so we'd get down on our hands and knees and we would scrape the dog hair into a pile from the 70s shag carpet. It was filthy and disgusting, you know what I mean? Like my brother talks about from the podium, you know, people would come over to our house once. And it wasn't because it was dirty, it's because the vibe was crazy. My dad was so intense and gnarly, you know what I mean? He had no problem hitting us in front of other kids, you know what I mean? And that was like the 70s, and that was more prevalent than it is now, but there was a level of violence that, I mean, there were multiple times. My brother tells a story about how he told my mom to shut up one time, and my dad was coming up the street. There was a whole group of us there, and my brother pissed his pants because he knew my dad was going to hit him, and he hit him and knocked him off the bike. And I'd been knocked off a bike multiple times from my dad, hitting us in the middle of the street. He had this temper that, you know, he was raised in Ireland in a Jesuit school, and his parents had sent him away, and so and then he came back, and he went to Korea, and he was a prisoner of war, and he had all this trauma in his life, and he brought that to our house, and there was just, I lived on a knife's edge. Now, some of my brothers talk about sometimes how they enjoyed that kind of extreme, like, emotion going on a regular basis, and I didn't. I felt at dis-ease. You know what I mean? And I would, like I said, I was contrarian. He would say something, and I would contradict him. And I would kind of like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. And you know what I mean? Or defend my brothers when they were getting in trouble. So I caught a lot of the violence just because I was just a pain in the ass. And he had this flash temper that you just never knew. I mean, it was like, it'd go from you're just having dinner to you're getting knocked out of your chair. And I know there's other people, and none of that stuff makes me an alcoholic, but it adds to my dis-ease in this world. I was uncomfortable. I remember from the very beginning being in groups of kids and just feeling so apart from. You know, we had tough skins, and they had Levi's, and we had holes in our tough skins, and we'd get these iron-on patches from Switzerland that my aunt would send my mom. So we have pictures where we had these like brown tough skins with like these blue oval patches. Does anyone remember oval patches? I don't know. Yeah. So we would have these, and you know, the other kids, they didn't even know what to make of us. You know what I mean? I remember this guy Jack Oreskovich one time said to me, you know, do you guys take showers? And it was like, well, we take a bath once a week. You know what I mean? Like Europeans, you take a bath once a week. That's how they raised us. And these kids were showering every single day, and they had Izod shirts, and they had penny loafers or whatever topsiders, that's what they were called, topsiders. And we had these knockoff shoes, and like not even Adidas, they'd have like 2 stripes instead of 3. It was like, oh man, you know? And you know, when you're a kid, you show up first day of school and you got them 2 stripes on. No, that's not good, you know? And you have the dragon. Does anyone remember the dragon shirt from Sears, right? The dragon's it's not a crocodile, you know what I mean? You want the crocodile, I got the dragon, you know? And it's like, oh my gosh, just feeling so uncomfortable all the time, you know? And it's like, and then like, you know, I talk about the violence that was in my life. I was not some sort of tough guy. I got beat up a lot, you know what I mean? I wasn't the toughest guy out there, and I was afraid a lot. And there were times where I didn't react with violence, and I felt terrible about myself. And then when I did react with violence, I felt terrible about myself. It was just, no matter which way I turned, it was like, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, you know what I mean? Like, I remember I came home in 2nd grade with a great report card. And my parents they looked at it and they go, oh, look at Mr. Perfect with the perfect report card. And I don't remember like it had some sort of profound effect on me. But those things, like there was no way to turn. My brothers are both really good in sports, and I was adequate at best. You know what I mean? Like I'm practicing to try to get better at golf, and I'm just not a natural athlete. I work so hard, and I'm never going to be like Scott. I mean, Scott's a good golfer. He's not as good as he thinks he is, but he's a golfer. Just ask him. As a matter of fact, you could ask Scott just about anything, and he'll tell you how good he is at it. He was telling Chris that you take him down. It's like, oh, yeah. Chris, yeah, anyways. But, so I just felt so uncomfortable, you know what I mean? And again, that doesn't necessarily make me an alcoholic. This is the 70s, and we were all broken. I mean, there were kids who didn't talk. They were like mute. And there were kids, you know what I mean, like who had poop in their pants at school, you know what I mean? There was so much going on at that time. It wasn't like today, like they were looking out for the whole child. They were just like, wow, that kid's screwed up, you know what I mean? Let's just try to figure this out. And so there'd be parent-teacher conferences, and there'd be suspensions, and there'd be referrals, and there'd be notes home, and there'd be beatings, and there'd be all that kind of stuff going on. And it was just like I said, I just felt uncomfortable, you know? And I'd be in groups of people, and I'd have friends, and I just never felt like, I just always felt, I looked at my brothers, and I just thought they're so well-liked, and I don't have that. I don't know why. I have no answer for that. You know what I mean? I just felt bad. And as it turns out, both my brothers are sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they were struggling with the exact same stuff. You know, I try to tell the kids that I teach today, stop judging yourself with other people's outsides and your insides. Because it's a middle school phenomenon. Those kids, they all have a hard time. There's no one not having a hard time. But it's like I had this profoundly hard time. And I see kids like me, you know what I mean, today, and they're all medicated. Not all of them, but the majority of them are medicated. And my parents were not going to go down that route because they were European. They didn't believe in it. So it was just like the craziness going on. And I was, you know, all my brothers talk about, like, there was the class, and then there was us. Desk facing the other way. Partitions up. You know what I mean? Like, and that never stopped us. There's no stopping someone who really wants to disrupt a class. Unless you're in my class. And then you got to dance with the devil at that point. You know what I mean? There's a lot of outside conversations in my class. You know? And I relate to those kids, and I understand what it is. And so I would not have ever come, you know what I mean, like to Alcoholics Anonymous with that. That is something that I've been able to talk about over the years because of the fact that, you know, all of that still brings up some shame and humiliation. I have to just walk through that. It's like, it just is what it is. But I remember, I'll never forget, and there was alcohol around my house, like I said, all the time, and I drank. I remember drinking whiskey. I remember drinking champagne. I remember drinking whiskey sours and hot toddies and all this stuff. But it wasn't until I started smoking pot that I got that magic. You know what I mean? Because the alcohol didn't have the effect because I wasn't doing it enough to get that warm sensation. I didn't realize where I needed to go with that. But I started smoking pot, and it worked like that for me. It was a giant exhale, and I thought, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Soon after that, I drank enough to get the effect of alcohol, and it was the exact same thing. Now I understand why people drink so much. All that stuff that I had, when I drank and used, it all went away. It was like a giant exhale. It really was. And it was an answer in my life, and I said, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I will not do this, because this is an answer for me. And if someone would have said to me, you know what I mean, like in high school, you know, are you willing to give your life for this? I would have said, absolutely not. That's totally irrational. I'm not going to do that. I don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. I use them every single day, and it feels good. And it was an answer for me. And then I got into punk rock, and it was perfect. I hit the absolute perfect point at that. I had an answer for all my problems. I had an identity. I was a skinhead. I went to punk rock shows. I used a lot of drugs and alcohol, and things were great. And if it would have stayed like that, I would have never gotten sober. But I'm always compelled to do more. From an early age, people said, why don't you not do that much? You know what I mean? Like, I remember we were taking mushrooms, and me and my friend Mike Gatt took a bunch, and everyone just took a little, and they were like, why are you doing? And it's like, why are we doing that? Because it's that. It's an answer. It's an answer that maybe you don't have that affliction to where that answers. That it closes that hole. And unfortunately, what happens is it turned on me. I started having a lot of really bad psychotic reactions to methamphetamine and LSD and PCP, and I just couldn't, and I would have these bad reactions, and I'd be like, and I'd have this break from reality, and it would be like, okay, I need to just like slow this down. And I never thought, drugs are bad, I'm going to stop doing that. I just thought the mix that I'm doing has to be altered somewhat so I don't run into that situation. But once I take even one beer, once I take one beer and I ingest it, I start making decisions because I need that. I need more. Why am I compelled to do more? I don't know. But I'm compelled to do more, and then I'm back in that situation. I'm back in the hospital. You know what I mean? It's like one of these things where I'm coming home and I'm telling my parents that I have to kill myself in order for all the rest of you guys to live. You know what I mean? And you see those guys out on the street, and they're talking to themselves. That was me. I was there. I had a complete break from reality. And eventually I tried to kill myself. I got my car going down via Monte d'Oro and smashed into a house going close to 100 miles an hour. Knocked the house, like 12 inches off its foundation and almost killed a baby. And not a scratch on me. I got out, eventually got arrested by the Torrance Police Department, attacked a couple of those guys, sent a couple of those guys to the hospital. It was like this progression where everything just kind of slipped out of my fingers. It all fell apart, and then I'm in 5-point restraints in LA County Hospital. I'm looking at a couple felonies and a few misdemeanors, and my mom is coming to see me. I'm naked with a catheter on the bed, all my clothes cut off. I'm nonverbal at that point. There's no response to anything that anyone's saying to me. I'm completely gone. And it's like, did I choose to end up there? No. But my actions got me there. The same way I talked about how Alcoholics Anonymous, my actions have gotten me here, my actions got me there. And the day before I came in here, like I said, I went directly into a psychiatric hospital, where they buzz you in, they close the door, and you cannot leave. And it's like, I'm there, dudes are eating cigarettes, got people with like severe anorexia and eating disorders. I mean, it's a complete shit show. It's like, I don't, and how do I get here? I'm a wreck. I've got like large rashes on my thighs because I have some sort of fungal infection, and they give me like ointment to put on there. So I'm like, it's in the evening, it's dark, I'm putting the ointment on my thighs, and they walk around, they check every half hour there. I'm not sure if you know that. So I got my back to the door, and I'm doing one of these, and the lady comes in. It's like, surprise inspection. Well, she got a surprise, you know what I'm saying? She's like, oh, she thought I was, pleasuring myself in my room. It was a shock to her and myself. I tried to justify it, but when you're in a psych unit, they don't really want to hear your justification. They just want to be left alone at that point. That went in the file, I'm sure. And I was supposed to be in there for 28 days, and I ended up being in there for 90 days because I was out of my mind. The lady came over and started asking me about my drug use. And I just told her an honest assessment of what was going on. And she said, you sound like you're an alcoholic and a drug addict. And we got programmed for guys like you. And so they put me in the substance abuse program, and I subsequently got kicked out of that for non-confirmation, back to the closed unit, back to the drug thing, back to the closed unit, back to the drug thing. And eventually I graduated from there when my insurance ran out. And they said, you know what, we realize you're better, so you can go now, right? And something had happened. There was some identification. And it wasn't in Alcoholics Anonymous. It was two guys who showed up to Alcoholics Anonymous. And they showed up there to see a girl that I was seeing in the rehab. Right? She had 3 or 4 guys going on at the same time. But I started talking to them, and they were punk rock guys, and they'd been sober 5 years. And they were real punk rock guys. And back then, there was a clear distinction between either you were a real punker or you were a poser, right? And they were real punkers. And there was identification. And they were sober, and I just thought, my friend Mike said, are you going to be sober for the rest of your life? And I said, I have no idea. I can't imagine not toasting champagne at my wedding. You know what I mean? I'm 18 years old. I'm a skinhead. I got no property, no job, no prospects, no nothing, but I'm worried about my wedding night. And that's the way our brain works, and it's like, so I start going to meetings with Alcoholics Anonymous. We start going to conventions, and we're going to shows, and you know what I mean? And I'm still getting in fights, and I still have an occasional warrant for a traffic warrant, and you know what I mean? Like, I've been in fistfights in conventions and asked not to return, and I've been in fistfights in meetings and asked not to return, and I talked in meetings incessantly. Literally, we would be in the back. Like, what would that guy in the front of the room have to say that I would relate to? Look at him. He's old. He's got to be at least 57 years old. You know what I mean? What has he got to say that I'm going to relate to? So it's like, but I saw other guys who, it's actually 9 minutes. He told me 15 minutes. What's with this guy wanting me to go over? You guys take that up with him afterwards. Or Chris Watnick. He's fielding all the complaints tonight. So yeah, I mean, I remember being Wes. I remember reading and just being like, I just remember being asked to read the 12 traditions, and I thought, good, it's the short one. You know what I mean? And then I got to anonymity. Like, oh my gosh. I don't know why they put that in there, and they asked newcomers to read it. It's like anonymity. And then I got to look up, what does anonymity even mean? You know what I mean? And autonomous. I am autonomous. We are autonomous. You know what I mean? Like things like that. When I was new, I had no idea what was going on. And they're speaking the language of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sponsor, big book, God. I want none of it. It sounds like sheep and conformity, and I don't want any of that. What do I want? I want to run it my way. Because I'm the only one I can depend on. I'm the only one who I can rely on. I'm the only one who I can trust. And I'm not letting you into my life. You're all a bunch of lames, and that's the truth. And we are. We are all lames. That's true. Even you, Andrew. Yeah, I see you back there. The fact of the matter is you have to give up that whole deal if you want to be sober. It's unfortunate. They used to say conform or die, and I'd just stick with the winners. Still, that makes my skin crawl. Like, oh, we got losers around here? You know what I mean? Like, listen, you may be a loser to a point, but we all have an opportunity today. Get a sponsor, work the steps, establish that relationship with God. All the walls start coming down to a certain degree. They're not gone. The idea that somehow we become perfect around here it's total bullshit. I make mistakes on a regular basis. I'm curt, and the closest to me will tell you that. They know my character defects. I can be really, really nasty. And I try my best on a regular basis, and I try to establish a relationship with God. We're not perfect around here, but we have a way to identify character defects. I know what my character defects are, and I work towards that. That's 6 and 7. And how did I get there? Big Christian Robinson asked me to sponsor him. That's how I got there. I started working with a sponsor, and I'll be honest with you, 4th step didn't do anything for me. 5th step didn't do anything for me. Starting the 8th step, there was no spiritual experience. It was just work. And I was willing to do the work at that point. I was a few years sober. I wanted a better life. I was still getting arrested. I still didn't have any transportation. I could not establish a meaningful relationship. I had a child, and I was not a good father to him. And it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And I asked a guy to sponsor me, and he started taking me through the book. Like I said, there was no white light experience. But when I started taking the guy through the steps, I just read a 5th step with a guy on Thursday. I'll never forget it. My first step, it was quiet. My first hearing of 5th step was a doozy. He had thousands of resentments. We started off in the park at 12. We ended in the park, and it was dark. It was like in summer. Christian Robinson. And I got back in the car at that point, and I was driving away, and I realized the sense of ease and comfort that I had gotten from drugs and alcohol, that thing that was so magical that you cannot explain to people who are not alcoholics. If you're alcoholic, you know that spiritual experience that you have from getting loaded. It is magical. People die tonight chasing that. I had that spiritual experience in that car driving home, and I realized that I had a connection with a higher power where I had passed on this thing. And that's where I thought, this is what I need to be doing for the rest of my life. And is everything perfect? No. But I met and married a Puerto Rican woman, red-haired Puerto Rican woman who has similar temperament to me. And we've established this life that's a wonderful life. And there's a lot of hiccups and road bumps, if you can imagine. Two very smart, strong-willed people with maybe a little bit of a temper. You know what I mean? Things can escalate, but we've built this life and we've raised these kids. She helped me raise my son. She became his mom. His mom died of methamphetamine addiction. And she became his mom. And she raised him, and the other day we were up there, and he introduced us as his parents. You know what I mean? And like, I don't deserve that. I'm the guy who doesn't become a father. And then we have two kids together, and it's like, and then it's this loving household. And you know what I mean? Then you show up for your kids, and you're at all the sporting events, and you catch yourself, and your kid just gives you that smile. And if you are a present parent, you know that smile. It just touches you at a level that you cannot believe. It's like, it's so core. Everything is removed. It's just you and them. You've established that loving relationship. They don't fear that you're going to hit them or judge them. They know that they can call you at any time of the day. And that's what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. And it's like my youngest got anorexia this year. And I mean, when I sat, she got anorexia. She, like the rest of us, don't do anything halfway. It was scary. I mean, she was literally a half a pound from being hospitalized. And it was like, and then it's like, okay, it's a whole different thing about establishing that relationship with God. It's not celebrating the wins, showing up to the sporting events and the medals and the hugs and all, graduations, all that stuff. It's no, your kid has an eating disorder that it may take her life. So you have to really rely on that relationship with God. It's the good and the bad. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's for guys like me who are completely broken coming in here, but yet I've established this life. I'm current in my life with my kids. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm willing to show up and speak here. I'm willing to hear a fifth step. I'm willing to go to my meetings and go to my commitments and show up and shake hands with people I don't even like. I like all of you. Even you, Scott. Even you. He's hard sometimes. You know, he seems like a nice guy. He's hard sometimes. No, the truth of the matter is, you know what I mean? I have people in this room who've been in my life for long periods of time who know who I am and what I've gone through. And you just keep showing up, and you keep sharing about it, and you don't have to handle your grief by yourself. It's us together. We're rowing in this boat together. Grab an oar. If you're new, Wes, get a sponsor. Get 5 commitments, Wes. Your life will turn into something that you could never imagine. It seems excessive. But the guys who get 5 commitments when they're new, then they show up here like Clay, and they've got lots of years. They go from no years to lots of years with this blessed life. If not for this program and people like you, I could have missed it all. Thank you.